Greetings, nerds. This is CNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. How are you doing?
Doing fine. I'm doing fine. I do not have the coronavirus.
I do not have the coronavirus either, but it is here in North Carolina, and many other places in the United States. But folks, just wash your hands, okay? Wash your hands. Do your hygiene regimen. Yeah.
Yeah. Just be a basic, healthy, cleansing, and safe person. I don't know. So we're not here to talk about the coronavirus, even though both Will and I feel like it's taking over our lives professionally. But we are here to talk about some news, and then we have some TV shows to discuss. Probably going to be a short show today, guys, because, this week, it was really quick. And yet I'm like, what happened this week? I even forgot about the Batmobile image.
Yeah, that was a couple days ago. So what did you think about the Batmobile?
I like it. It falls in line with the suit.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Reeves clearly has a vision for the world he's trying to construct. And now that I really am thinking about it, the world, it's not the Tim Burton goth world.
Right.
It's also not the uberly realistic, like this is a real, almost could be a New York City type vibe in modern day from Christopher Nolan. There's like a weird cross, and it feels very 90s to me. And I don't know how intentional that is, but it feels very 90s.
And that would make sense, given that it's my understanding that the Batman is set in its second year of operation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go with that, like you said, that 90s vibe, it would potentially sync up with what we potentially saw in, well, I guess Batman Begins was early 2000s, but you can still make it work within that universe if you wanted to go like the Nolan Bat, or even, heaven forbid, the recent DCEU version with Batfleck. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like it. I like the art direction, the way these images are coming out. There's a clear style.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. It feels familiar, but also new. And that's very important. But then again, we all know how I feel about just talking about images. I want to see the trailer before I can be like, this was a great idea, or this is going to suck.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. But the images that they have released so far, I'm getting pretty excited about this film. I think you're right. We joked about Pattinson's jawline at the reveal of the suit, and then of course we had the Bat Cycle images that we I guess that was about a week or so ago, and now we have this, and I'm getting excited for this film.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, with all of the craziness going on, that the Stargirl starts on May 11th on the DCU app, and May 12th it'll air on CW.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to watch this show. Why are we talking about this?
We have fans in the Arrowverse and DC universe that may want to watch this show, and maybe if they can give us some tips if they think it's worth our time to watch. It's a 13 episode season, so it definitely will be sort of that. It could be a potential bridge show for us if there's a lot of positive buzz for it. But
positive buzz. Maybe even then. I don't know anymore. Also, in line with Arrowverse, Melissa Benoist and Chris Wood are expecting their first child. This news was insane to me because I could have sworn when I was watching the most recent episode of Supergirl, I had a thought that, is she pregnant?
Huh.
I have no idea why, but it just bleeped it. It went in my mind. I'm like, I wonder I wonder, and maybe it was how they were editing around her or something, or she was
Mm.
wearing like a shirt that looked a little bit big on her for some reason, and I was just like, oh, I wonder if she's expecting.
Yeah, it's very possible. I still haven't seen more details about how this impacts season 5 filming or season 6, and but yeah, maybe your sleuthing senses may have been on there. Maybe we're onto something if it indeed had already, maybe she had told the producers and stuff and just now is revealing it publicly since she's really maybe starting to obviously show.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know, but good for them. They're really a success story, and I'm glad that they are probably gonna make some really pretty babies.
Probably that kid won the genetic lottery.
Yeah. Probably in the humor department too. Gonna have some good comedic timing. Oh man. So the rise, okay. See, it's a slow news week when the rise of Skywalker continues to be brought up and
Mhm.
brought up and brought up. The movie was released months ago, y'all. Get over it. It happened. It's in our little, it's on our movie libraries now. Um, it's done. And I get, yeah, they released a novel about it. And the novel is claiming everyone and their mother and their father, I should say, is a clone.
Yeah.
However, I do not read the novels. I don't give a crap if they're canon or not, because my canon is the freaking movies and my fan fiction.
As soon as I have to say, I was saving it for tonight as far as our recording when I saw that they said the kiss between Kylo and Rey was not romantic. I thought of it and I was like, nope, I'm just going to hold on. I'm just going to save it for tonight so I could just hear your rant real time.
Put the salt on the wound. What the kind of bullshit is that? We're gonna give some of the audience what they want. Yeah, and yeah, there's an actual audience who loves Raylo, and then we're gonna take it back months later.
Yeah.
Months later. Months later. I don't care what the intention was. Did that come from JJ?
It came from the novelization. I don't think it came
Oh,
from.
the novelization, who is also just pissing on everything else too. That novelization.
Those were the three things that broke this week. It was the Raylo kiss was not romantic. The second thing was it confirmed that Palpatine was a clone, which again, apparently, I saw an interview with Ian McDermott actually said that they actually had it was in the original script, and if it was in the original script, they should have left it in there because that would have helped a little bit with that film. But
was it in Trevorrow's script? Because there's some people who just are like, well, if it wasn't in Trevorrow's script, it doesn't count.
yeah, I don't know if I don't know. I don't think it. I don't know if Palpatine was even into Trevorrow's story. I don't recall, but again, it just shows how effed up this movie really was, and as I get months from it, how forgettable it was as far as the Star Wars film, and then secondly, if but we said before, if you're using secondary sources like the novels or the encyclopedia to tell the story, then your story sucked.
Yes, I agree with you on that point. I actually don't think that this discredits this movie as being forgettable, considering how much continued discussion, whether it's because a novel was released and then people are jumping on things. The movie is still in their minds. They're still reflecting on, well, that didn't happen in the movie, or maybe if they had put that, it would have worked better. So I don't think that it's...
Yeah, maybe forgettable is not the right word. Yeah.
It is definitely a movie that, for whatever reason, and arguably a franchise at this point, a trilogy of movies that has really erupted this kind of split of fans and people's opinions, and everyone has one. It's very similar to what played out on Arrow for years, and still is playing out. Even the show between Lulliver fans and Olicity fans. It's
I still see that stuff on the timelines, and I even joked with Tasha. Somebody was grumbling about Olicity, blah blah blah, and I just finally just like this fandom.
yeah. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to the movie coming out again on video, and so that I can rewatch it, because there are some scenes I want to rewatch, and no, not just the kiss scene. Will, get your mind out of the gutter.
Okay.
There's some of the fighting scenes, and I just remember sitting down in the theater and actually overall having an honest to good time, you know?
Yeah.
I just, for whatever reason, the 2.5 hours flew by very quickly for me, and I enjoyed it. In retrospect, are there flaws? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was, you go watch a Fast and the Furious movie, there are so many flaws in that movie, and everybody's like, well, I had a good time. And yet there isn't 3 months worth of discussion about a Fast and Furious movie, and yet a Star Wars movie with flaws, God forbid.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess with distance, because I think whenever we first discussed it, I said it was enjoyable, blah blah blah. I liked, I was okay with it, but I guess when I see these types of things, and like I said, I think maybe forgettable is not the right word. I think it definitely heightens the polarization of how people felt about this film, and it's sort of like, for me, it frustrates me, because I think if they had included like that particular element, like I said, it's not the end all be all, but it would have helped internally make internal consistency within the film work, as far as how the Palpatine get back, and you have this like Sith, the Sith crowd in the background, and they're responsible for the other thing that dropped this week. Apparently they were the people who cloned Palpatine to begin with, and I guess one of the failed clones ended up being Rey's father, and they just introduced all this stuff at the last film, and introduce some of these things to try to, I guess, clean up the issues that some people had with Last Jedi, and it just, again, it makes it very frustrating to me with time now, as far as when I think about this film, and it definitely has lowered my already. I was kind of lukewarm. I was kind of okay with it, but now it's kind of lowered my overall thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, I think people just, novelizations are a new thing. Having these movies released in a time with social media where everyone has opinion and a platform to state their opinion about things, that really says something, and it makes me just wonder, had this trilogy been released or executed a decade ago, or a decade and a half ago, what would have been the outcry? The prequel trilogy was released almost a decade and a half ago, or more than that.
Yeah.
And there was for that period since its release, that was always put down and talked about. And debates aren't about the prequels anymore. Debates are about this trilogy, which is it's very fascinating and interesting. And but guys, like, again, I can't state this enough. The movie was released 3 months ago. Calm down. It's done. It's done.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Credits roll. Reylo and Kylo, canon. Anyway, so Taika Waititi, and Will just likes putting his name in headlines so that he can hear me enunciate it, is creating a new Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Because, yeah, God, why take a man who is brilliant with original concepts and ideas and say, go and redo this beaten to death story?
Yeah, but so he is indeed doing a remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but the second part of it, he is doing an original story with the Oompa Loofahs.
No, still not so.
Still not enough for you. Still not enough. Okay, fair.
It's like, yeah, like, no, I don't want that. I mean, I want him to, first of all, continue making Thor movies. First, priority number one. Maybe even go and dabble in some Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But this man is just a treasure. And I still have yet to sit down and actually watch Jojo Rabbit. Yes, I'm kind of waiting for that price point to drop a little bit. Mm-hmm. But he got so much praise and love for that idea. And that was a gamble.
Yeah.
That I don't want to see that wasted on even taking a character and expand it. No, that's what he's doing with Thor right now, and he's executing it great. But
yeah, I was excited to hear it. I mean, just because of this, just a simple thing. A lot of the things you said. I mean, he is such a talented director. He's also going to be writing the stories as well. So. And we've seen how, like, again, Thor Ragnarok, also the Mandalorian last season. He also directed an episode of it. So, I mean, the man is amazing, and like you, I definitely am wanting to watch Jojo Rabbit as soon as I can. So I'm actually okay with this one.
Well, because that's the world we are in right now. Man. Oh, man. I forgot to add the last bit of Arrowverse news. The Flash has promoted Brandon McKnight, who plays Chester on the series, to a regular for season 7. And I just also saw a headline that the actress who plays Allegra also has been promoted as well. So this is what we call replacing the original Barry, Caitlin, and Cisco.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I haven't listened to the podcast yet, but I did see a clip on Twitter last night of Brandon Routh's interview with Michael Rosenbaum, where he talks about how the CW sucks at telling people that you're going to be written off the show.
Yeah, I got to watch that with you. Thanks for reminding me of that. Yeah. It's the Flash. They're coming up to year 7, and some of the stories for we've talked about this with Cisco, I think, last week, and they've kind of hit, I think, the creative end arc into his arc. And if Carlos has other gigs that he's working on or other things that he wants to move on from, but yet, have a situation like Jeremy Jordan where he can come back and visit Central City every now and then. Maybe that's the way to go, just to cycle, to basically bring new characters in. And I know people were like feeling like Chester was kind of Cisco light, but I mean, there were some moments in particular in that episode where he and Frost had that heart-to-heart at the elevator, where they really, if they do it right, and so far I have to say I think the new showrunner has done a better job of utilizing the supporting characters. They can really create a fresh energy, a fresh vibe with cycling off some of the characters, and particularly, let's finally end this endless cycle of Harrison Wells. As much as I love Tom Cavanaugh, but that idea is played out.
Grant Gustin will probably have that in his contract. I'm not going to do this show without Tom Cavanaugh.
True.
And Cavanaugh's like, I have to play a different character every season.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah.
I agree. Chester at first completely caught off guard, and I do agree that after watching last week's episode that I am Team Chester and not so much Team Carlos or Team Cisco. It's very interesting how on Arrow, and hey, I'm going to constantly compare those two shows because they're going to be forever intertwined for me.
Yes. Yep. Me too.
And on Arrow, the supporting cast, I mean, other than really Emily Bett, who left, but she did have a legitimate project to go do that she wanted to, and I think she was over it. Everyone else kind of stayed on board until Steven was like, no, I'm done with it. And then even David Ramsey kind of stepped up during the series finale, and it was really Diggle eccentric. Yeah. So, and yet on The Flash, it's the reverse, where everyone else seems to be kind of leaving and wanting different things. And I still think Grant there's something that's been off with him for actually, I think, the last 2 seasons, arguably, where it doesn't feel right. He's not as bad as some of the Stephen Amell acting in like season 7.
Second half, 7B, yeah.
Wasted all his energy in the first half. So, but still, it still doesn't feel, and it's never going to be. And this is always going to be the flaw of The Flash, is that they had arguably one of the best seasons of TV ever in their first season. They're never going to live up to that again. Right.
That's true. That's so true. But I think Grant, I feel like the last 6B, he's starting to get back into sort of the groove of the character. But I think 6A, definitely, I felt like he was off. And I think it was just this story with Crisis and just sort of, it's just been played out for so long. And then we finally got past it. So now I think he is free to, okay, let's do something new with this character, since we've gotten this huge story point that has been building for the last 6 years out of the way.
Right.
And we'll see. I mean, the cast is signed through 7 seasons, and I think one of the things I am liking about this season is how they are using some of the new source material and weaving it into the story. So, that's the good thing about this particular character. I mean, there's just such a rich well of source material that they can tap from. So if they need to, and if it means some of the regulars from the earlier years cycling off to do other things, if they can bring in new cast members to keep the show going and keep the quality up, I mean, I'm okay with that. And as long as Grant, it's like Steven, as long as Grant doesn't feel burnt out, then keep it going. Yeah. I mean, heck, they may even have I don't know if anybody have a Supernatural run, but we'll see.
Yeah, Supernatural is always going to be something that I think a lot of people. I mean, I'll be honest. I got on board right when it after its 5th season, and it was started airing reruns on TNT. And so I watched the first 4 seasons, was really all in, watched the 5th season and then just kind of fell off of it. And every now and then I'll still go back and be like, what's going on over there? But it still continues to be the same thing. So, but it is really remarkable what they did. And I will always have respect for that. Even those 2 actors, just to do that for so long. I was legitimately in high school when it first came out. That's how long that show's been on. In other news, Black Lightning.
Yeah.
It wrapped up its 3rd season.
Well, it's penultimate this week.
Okay. I give up. Will, I give up. I'm going to throw in the towel because every time
You're trying to kill the season. One of my favorite shows is on right now. You keep trying to wrap it up the weeks before it actually wraps. Next week is the final finale. So
it looks so bad, but I could have. So for whatever reason, I could have sworn 2 weeks ago you were talking about it and you said the penultimate episode, and all of a sudden I have that stuck in my mind.
Yeah. I forgot that they were doing 16 episodes this season. So this week was episode 15, obviously.
Which brings me back to my point. Me forgetting and always getting confused by this is really your fault. So, what happened in the penultimate episode?
Now that we got that all figured, it's always Will's fault. It's always my fault. But what happened this week? So we get the backstory of Gravedigger told in first person. So he was, as I mentioned before, was a creation of the U.S. Army as a super soldier, and he talks about, they have some pretty good for Black Lightning fight scenes of him fighting Nazis in World War II, and how he came about his name of Gravedigger, which is basically he did it was very literal. He just I killed these characters and these guys off, and I felt like they needed proper graves, and I became the Gravedigger. And so, but it was also in the context of, this is Black Lightning, so it was, you have the social commentary piece of it as well, as far as him being an African American soldier and some of the injustices that he dealt with while he was in the service. And so you have that, and then of course you fast forward to present day, where he takes the serum that was created and basically he was studying all the team that Jefferson had assembled to rescue Lynn from Markovia, to basically see what their meta abilities are. And so you had that going on. But what I really liked about Gravedigger and Wayne Brady in particular is he really brings a good gravitas to the character, where it could easily be sort of a one-off big baddie of the week. I mean, I don't think the character will go down as as one of the top Arrowverse villains, but it's a whole, but it's not a cicada either. So that was that aspect of the story. The other things that, since they are, it is building to an end and the Markovians are surrounding Friedland, Jefferson and Thunder were trying to recruit Lala to join the cause. Lala's like, nah, man, I got my own gig. Lady Eve was trying to get back into the good graces with Odell and the ASA. So that's some things that they'll definitely, I think, pick up on season 4 since she's back. And of course, being Black Lightning, you're always going to have the family moments, and Thunder and Grace were, they got engaged, and they were going to have. They were actually in the process of having their ceremony, but it got interrupted because Gravedigger arrived in Friedland, and of course, Jennifer, being Jennifer, she just jumps head first into the fight, not knowing what she was getting into. and it didn't go so well for her. But the other big piece that they'll definitely touch on next week with Gravedigger and Jefferson, there is a connection there, because one of the unique things about Jefferson is he was at that point one of the few stable metas that was in the area, and so of course Gravedigger is as well. And it turns out when Lynn did an analysis, it turns out Gravedigger is his uncle.
Well, because that's so refreshing to suddenly find that the arch nemesis is related to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what? At least they didn't say he's a clone.
Exactly.
Oh, man. That is becoming a trend, though. I've noticed. For a while there, I felt like every show, the penultimate episode would be that big, almost the last hurrah, where the actual finale would be more of an epilogue. And yet now there seems to be this weird trend where it's almost a standalone, and it's told in a very different way to make sure that when they do air the finale, you can see all the sides of it and everyone, and you understand that climax. However, I do notice when you do that, sometimes the ultimate climax of the overall season will be oddly placed in that finale episode, where they'll either set it up for a cliffhanger, or if you pull a page from Titans, you will put it very early in the episode, and then there'll be this awkwardly placed epilogue during the second half of the episode.
Exactly. Yeah. I think Black Lightning definitely falls into the former. And also, I mean, there's also, I didn't talk much about Khalil and his story with Painkiller, but there was, I think, they're definitely setting things up for future stories with these characters, and Khalil's been fighting with the negative Khalil, the aggressive part of his personality, and they do a pretty dope job of sort of going inside his head, and it's like a corridor and a room at the end of the hall, and they're always doing some good fight sequences and stuff in there. But it's also this episode really got into how Khalil's aggressive side was responsible for him being the great athlete and working his ass off and being a good student to get into college and stuff. And the more, I won't say, I guess the more compassionate side of him is the empathy and the things that make him always wanted to be a helpful, good dude. So those are other good little story points that I think they've done a good job this season of developing.
Great. All right. Well, one more week. No.
One more week. Yeah.
One more week.
Yeah.
So we also decided to check out Netflix's new series, I'm Not Okay With This. A decision that I don't think I'm okay with anymore. It was weird to watch it because as much as, and I sent you a message about this, I really do think that if you watch a trailer for this show, if you don't like the trailer, do not watch any of the episodes. You won't like it. If you did like the trailer, then check it out. However, I still haven't finished it. And in my mind, I think I'm just done with it. I think I'm about 2 episodes shy. There is something about the pace of that show that really bothers me because there's a progression, but it's not going fast enough. And it should be, considering they're only half-hour episodes.
Exactly. Oh, okay. I'm so glad that I was feeling the exact same thing.
We're both okay with this.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it. I mean, it was good. I finished it. It's 7 episodes, and it really is bingeable. I mean, if you really just have, if you just want to knock out a series in an evening, you could do it. But I agree with you. The pacing is, I mean, for a 30-minute episode, I felt like it was a slog to get through some of them.
Yeah, yeah, and it felt very repetitious with some of the episodes. We're like, okay, we get it. We
Yeah,
get she's interested in her best friend. How many times do you have to go through that? Oh no, now they kiss. Now what?
yeah.
Um,
Now you have the boyfriend come up and you know, and he just and you know, I think the other thing, it definitely, you know, it has all the tropes as far as the, you
yes.
know, the jock versus the geeks. And I mean, I mean, like I said, I enjoyed it. I mean, I would, you know, would it be? Is it something I would recommend to someone? I think you're right. If you liked the trailer, yes, go watch it. If you didn't like the trailer, yeah, just pass on it, or you know, or yeah, pass on it, because
Yeah.
you'll be frustrated watching it. If you didn't like the trailer, it'll confirm your thoughts on it.
And
But
it kind of is bothers me because the actress, the main actress in the show, she's really talented and
mhm,
really good. However, based on the material, I think she even became a bit stale, where it would the same mannerisms, the same
yeah,
expressions, and she didn't necessarily evolve. And
right.
because she's both narrating and the lead in the show, I just was like, okay, there's other people in this world. Why aren't we hearing from them?
Yeah,
When is this
yeah, yeah.
journey gonna stop?
Yeah, but I mean, some of the things I did like about it is I like the way that they did it with the emotions driving the psychokinesis. I mean, that was a pretty cool way of, like, okay, and especially when she and Steve, when he figured out what was going on, and he was, you know, talking to her in the bowling alley, and really tried.
You would like that. It has everything to do with superpowers. And
Yeah, no,
come on,
yeah,
we're
it did.
talking.
It did. I mean, of course, it had the superpowers and stuff. So I mean, that was the hook that got me in to begin with. Um, but I liked that. I mean, because it did give one of the supporting characters an opportunity to really really do something as far as helping to drive the narrative forward. Um, and so I thought that was a good use of that. And then the other thing too that I think, just, you know, it does have that. It did remind me of, obviously, the Stranger Thing Bob, using all the throwbacks to it with the nostalgia, all the
Mhm.
'80s songs and stuff. And I had to remind myself, it's like, okay, now is this set present day, or is it set in '80s? Um, but you know, but it had that kind of vibe to it. But you know, but overall, the series in some regards reminded me of some of the other shows on Netflix, as far as with some of the teen dramas. I mean, not quite the same as Sex Education. I did make it through that series some time back, um, and
That's funny that you bring that up because I started actually watching some of season two.
mm,
I'm pretty close to finishing season two of Sex Education. Not bad, not bad at all.
okay, yeah, I still need to watch season 2, but so it kind of, you know, it gave me some of those feelings too. But I think Sex Education is a much superior show.
Yeah. No, well, clearly I watched the first episode of season two and I was like, I'm over Sex Education, and then I start watching this show and I'm like, okay, let me go back to Sex Education. and and it is I I like how you just pointed out that there clearly is a trend with how these Netflix original series are designed, very similar to CW, because
Hmm.
CW has a formula.
Hmm.
It's applied all across their shows. You can tell a CW show versus another network. There's a
Yeah.
distinction there. And so a part of me also applauds Netflix for being able to establish that in such a short period of time with these original series. Another part of me is just like, you know what? HBO, the only reason you can tell an HBO show from other shows is just because of damn quality.
Yeah.
Like, there's something very cinematic about it. But their shows are actually very distinct. They have comedies, they have dramas, they have everything in between. So, and they have a superhero show.
Yeah.
So I just hope that they continue to, they evolve that a little bit more, make it a little bit more broader. And I like I said, I don't even think I'm going to go back and finish watching this because I'm over it.
Okay, you should watch it. You should watch it. That's all, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil you or our listeners if they haven't watched it yet.
Speaking of things that Will wants me to watch, we did watch episode 6 of Picard season 1, and finally we have some progression. I really like this episode.
Yeah, me too.
I like the setup. I like the box. I like. I'm finding that I think last week's episode, it was missing Norak for me. I think Norak's a very interesting character because although he is on this mission and he is part of the opposite side, when he locked Soji in that room and he turned around, he couldn't even face her. And there were tears. And so the part of me is also like, you know what? This isn't a Lex Luthor thing where he's you really have to overly analyze his actions to understand if he really loves Lena or not. But in this case, I buy into it. There was some form of connection, but overall, his allegiance to his family and where he comes from and what his beliefs were before Soji has led him to this place where he ultimately has to sacrifice her. And I thought that was a very powerful moment and just a whole sequence.
It was. I mean, that I was on the edge of my seat when that whole sequence went down with the box. And I'm glad you brought the impossible. I mean, the episode's name was The Impossible Box, and it was basically I was like, hey, it's a Rubik's Cube. But,
I know, right?
Yeah, but it's a Romulan Rubik's Cube. But it was really a good prop device to really get to the things you just said. As far as he had really boxed in his emotions, and he was a very complex character, and but also a very patient character.
Oh yeah.
Because that was a big thing that with his sister to this point in the series, she's very impatient, always like, I want to see results, but all those building up to this point and building that relationship with Soji. And the way this episode started out with the two of them, when their conversation after she had the nightmares.
Oh yeah. So, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, just to your point, it really shows that connection, so that when you get to the end of the episode with what happens with her being locked in the room, and then he, makes the box send off some gas or whatever. That anguish and the emotion that you were describing, it felt so real.
Yep. I think that also what this episode did is there were, I don't want to call them hints, but there was foreshadowing of how the dreams and this whole dynamic with her mom, where looking back at the first few episodes of the season, there were some times when we would catch Soji and she would either be just signing off or randomly waking up in front of her laptop from asleep. And it was very abrupt, and it was so cast aside that you didn't think much of it. And now in this episode, when Norak starts going down this path about her dreams, you start to reflect and you're like, oh my God, what is happening there? That really is. And I think that dreams has always been linked to subconscious behavior and thoughts, and it's really interesting when you dissect what you dream about and how that is connected to how you other things that are going on in your world or how you perceive the world. So his intelligence level, but also it wasn't far-fetched because of everything that they showed leading up to that conclusion, where I was just like, yeah, Norak. And then he's like, I pulled the reports 70 seconds every day.
Yep.
That's how long your phone call is. Just like, what? I like that. That actress, the actress who plays Soji, did really good when she figured out that she wasn't real. And so all of the motions, all of the things. My one gripe is, how many things did she have to scan? I wanted to be like, yeah, we got it after the third one. Moving on.
Move along. Yeah. That's. But I agree with you there that they could have like tightened that up a bit. But that was, again, that how he used the dreams and really tapped into her subconscious and all the patience of and really trying to carve out the human versus the synth and synthetic, and making her one of the things that stuck out with me when he was talking to his sister about that, as far as his whole plan was using this whole process to help her come to the realization on her own without setting off the subroutine to her defense mechanism, so that she would shut down.
Right.
And so you're right. I mean, I think that was the thing that was missing in last week's episode. Norak is definitely that. It's such a very complex character and good villain, because he's not just your typical evil guy. I mean, he has some nuance to him. But even though Hugh called him out and saw it very early on, that he was Tal Shiar, but and of course we confirm it, and he confirms it this week when he talks to Picard about it. But yeah, that was definitely missing it last week, and I'm glad that they carried it forward, and really was definitely, I think, the strongest episode to date.
Yeah. And that's also, Theo called it, because Theo is envious that Norak got into Soji's pants, and he hasn't. I haven't forgotten about those looks. Okay.
Yes.
Just and you know what's weird about this? The Picard portion of this episode. I like the stuff with Theo.
Or Hugh.
Or Hugh. Why did I put whatever? Yeah. So Hugh. However, I actually think that the writers should have made this all Soji and Norak, and really delve, because they took a week off. It's only fair. And honestly, I kept, anytime it would go back to the whole Borg and Picard coming to his feelings about being now on the artifact, I just I was suddenly like, whoa, let's get back to the main thing. And also, a part of me kept wondering, I'm like, Picard, you literally have been on a multi-week like path to get here, and now you're here, you're gonna go take a tour? What are you doing? What's happening?
You only have 24 hours, get over there.
It's like, as soon as he sets foot on the artifact, it's like he slows way down.
yeah Well, I think that's the whole PTSD, and I liked. I mean, that was the other thing I really liked about the episode, was when I was watching it, and it was definitely fan service to go back to the best of both worlds, the episode where he was abducted by the Borg, and I love this. I love the way they they used a little screen of him as Locutus, and then and him in present day I mean, I just love that, and the same with Hugh as well. Whenever he figured out when they showed the difference between he was a Borg and now as the head of the project. But I'm glad that they still. I mean, that's been a through line through Star Trek, even in the films when they encountered the Borg, Picard's PTSD dealing, having been abducted, and I'm glad they continue to acknowledge that. And it was good fan service, but it also brought people into the story who may have not watched Next Generation before. It was just the right way of introducing that important story point about why Picard reacted the way he did when he was on the artifact.
Yeah. No, you raised some valid points, and I'm glad you said fan service and I didn't say fan service. I was definitely thinking fan service, but I've already thrown so much shade tonight, Will, especially towards everything you love.
It's okay. But it was good. It was good fan service, unlike another thing that we talked about earlier this evening. But the other thing I really liked about this episode was, just speaking of supporting characters, Raffi. And
Ralphie had some moments, and she's becoming stronger, well, arguably weaker considering the state she is. I loved how much Ralphie is becoming almost like a light switch. Mm-hmm. You can turn her on, you can turn her off. And how she able is to convince the Federation and manipulate and do this talking. And you can see why she is so essential to Picard and his mission in that moment. And then immediately, as soon as the phone line goes dead, it's like, now I'm a drunk again. And everything falls apart. And again, they're playing with this idea that of what Picard's going through, being where he is at this point in his life. It happens with people at all stages, whether through their own self-destruction, they've kind of broken everything else. So they have this weird identity issue where, she used to be a pro at this. She used to be able to do what Picard's doing. And then she experienced this thing that broke her to this point where she still has it in her, but she also, when she's not needed, she doesn't know what else to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a very good juxtaposition, and I'm glad you mentioned Ralphie.
Yeah. I mean, it really, that, and then and Rio's, seeing that in her, and I hope they explore in season 2 some of their backstory, because clearly they knew each other. I don't know if it was through when Rios was in Starfleet as well, or how their paths crossed, but that there was that understanding he had with her whenever he carried her back to her quarters after the phone conversation with the captain of her former friend, who's like, "Don't ever call me again." But right. And also, and helping her feel relevant again. Yep. And so, because she is broken, and it reminds me of why, as far as like other Star Trek shows like Deep Space Nine, where the Federation characters were not perfect. Unlike one of the knocks on Next Generation was there was no conflict, and the characters, at least among the core characters. And I like, and one of the things I do like about this show is there is conflict between the core characters, and there is disagreement, and that they're not, and they do have their demons, and this show is showing that. So that's one of the things I have liked about Picard.
Right. No, I agree, and I was right, because I figured that this episode would really be the extra push that I've been missing in the last few episodes. Mm-hmm. It had that Norak push, and I'm kind of back on board in a way. I never was completely off the show, mm-hmm. but I'm definitely reinvested, is a better way to put it. I'm reinvested in season, seeing it through, and the characters, to your point, are certainly growing along with the overall plot.
Yeah, and I know we didn't talk much about Maddox and Jurati and their relationship last week, but clearly, and Elnor, I mean, he had, even though he didn't have much to do this episode, well, except for has some pretty badass scenes at the end with on the artifact, but again, I like the way they're keeping the continuity of like the candor, and he calling out the fact that she, one, they picked up on the obvious attraction that Rios and Jurati had earlier, and they did hook up this episode. But also, he also picked up on the fact that she's hiding something, and feeling conflicted, and clearly part of that is her killing Maddox. But going back to earlier in the season when she had that moment with the Vulcan / Romulan agent in the park before she went off to join Picard. Clearly, that Commodore told her something that led her to kill Maddox, and obviously, it does tie into the whole notion of trying to find the sense homeworld, which seems to be the ultimate goal of the Romulans here, I guess, obviously to just destroy them. So, so this was just, again, I think this episode this week really just had so many. It really did carry the story forward in a good way, and it definitely got me reinvested. Not that I was ever disinvested, but I did get to a point where I was like, okay, where are we going with this? And now I like the direction we're going in.
Right. All right. And on that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will M. Polk. That's WILLMPOLK.
You can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.